and welcome to our roguelike video game and Unity tutorial series. Today we'll be laying the groundwork for our inventory system. To fully build out the inventory system, it's going to take a couple of videos. So today we're just going to be working on three classes: our inventory manager, our item class, and our add item class. To begin, inside of our scripts folder, we're going to right click, create model behavior script. We'll name this inventory manager. We'll make another one and we'll name this one item. And then we'll create one more and we'll name this one, after it finishes, add item. Now we're going to open up our add item, our inventory manager, our item script, and if you don't have it open already, we're also going to need our game manager class open. Let's jump into our inventory manager, and we're going to delete what's here to start with. And then at the top here, we're going to add some additional usings. So we'll be using system collections generic, Unity engine, your personal namespace, and using system. This is going to be a mono behavior script, so we don't need to change that. We're going to add two things to define at the top here. We're going to make a list of our item slots, and we're going to name that list inventory slots, and we're going to set our maximum inventory size as an integer to 20. Before we go on here for inventory manager, we're just going to make a very quick little helper class. This is a small class inside of our other class script. This is going to be an item slot class. It's going to be system serializable. It's going to be public class item slot, and then there's going to be two things we need to define: the item that is inside of it, the quantity of the item inside of it, and then we need a small little method that's going to clear the slot whenever we need it to be cleared. Next, at the top of our inventory manager script, we're going to define several events that will be called while other scripts are interacting with inventory manager and inventory manager is doing its job. So we have several events here. First is just broadcasting, hey, inventory has changed. There's a difference from what it was before. The second is specifically when an item is added to the inventory. It's going to also broadcast what item was added. It's going to also broadcast when the item's been removed. It's going to broadcast when the inventory is full. It's going to include an integer, which is going to be the quantity that's rejected. On out of inventory, again, quantity that we don't have. And then not enough of item, quantity remaining, and then how many are removed. When we're done writing out the script, I will walk you through an example of everything that's happening, so you understand kind of the flow of what's going on. I can't do it in the game because that would require a bunch of additional classes. I don't want to jump ahead, so we're just going to stick with this. Next, we need to define our awake method for inventory manager, which is basically saying, hey, that inventory slots list that we made earlier, we're going to define it as a list, and it's going to be the size of our maximum inventory size. And then we want to go ahead and fill out that list, which is going to be our initialize inventory method, which we'll go ahead and write out now. This is going to be a private void initialize inventory. And we're just going to have a very small loop in here where I equals 0, I is less than our maximum inventory size, I plus plus, and then we're just adding these slots to our inventory, saying, hey, you've got 20 slots in your inventory now, making sure we're able to add them and modify them as needed. Next, we're going to work on our add item method. So this is going to be a public void add item. And it's going to take two arguments, the item that we're going to add and the quantity that we're adding. We're going to default it to 1, but that can be overridden by other items. At the very beginning of add item, we're just going to put out a log saying we're trying to add a quantity of this item. Next, we need to see if we have an item of that type already in our inventory so we can stack it instead of creating a new stack. To do that, we need to first go inside of our inventory slots. We're going to use our find method that comes with system collections. And we're going to define a slot where the slot equals the item and the slot quantity is less than the item's max stack size. Meaning that if we're looking to add bullets and the max stack of bullets is 100, then we won't go over that 100, because if that slot already has 100 in it. It's hard to explain here. Let's get through the code and then I'll walk through step by step how it works. Next, we need to find what happens if we find an existing slot. So if existing slot is not equal to null, we're going to have an addable amount, so we need to track how many we can add. We're going to take the minimum of either the quantity or the remaining quantity to be able to be added to a slot. Whichever one is less is the number that we're going to take. We're going to set that to our addable amounts, and then we're going to add that to our slots, and then we're going to set it to the item just to make sure, and then we're going to set the quantity to minus the addable amount. And then we're just going to broadcast into our log what we did. Again, this might not make total sense right now, but I will walk you through this whenever we're done with this method. Next, we need to handle if we have additional quantities to add after we filled that slot. So while quantity is greater than 0, we're going to do empty slot equals inventory slots find slot equals null. So meaning we're looking for a slot that's empty. If we could not find an empty slot, then we'll just tell everything that the slot is full. So we're going to put out a debug log, and then we're going to broadcast that event with the item and quantity. If we did find a slot, and then we have this return, which basically breaks out of the method. If we did find a slot, then we're going to see which one is lower, a quantity or a max stack size. We're going to take that, we're going to add that to the slots, we're going to set it to the item, we're going to subtract how many we added from our quantity, and then we're going to broadcast out. And then if our quantity is still greater than 0, it will repeat that. And then at the very end, we just have a few things to end our method. Finished adding item to inventory. We need to update our inventory, and then on item added, we'll invoke out the item that we added. Right, so let me just walk you through this logically with an actual example. Let's say that we have a bullet item. Our maximum stack for our bullets is 100. Our character is trying to add 220 to his inventory. He already has 60 in his inventory. Okay, so keep that in mind. Let me pull up a little notepad here real quick. Okay, so want to add 220 bullets. Okay, we have 60 bullets. The bullets max stack size is 100. Okay. So, in our method, so we're going to take the item and the quantity. So we want to add bullets, our item, a quantity of 220. We're going to look and see if we have any slots, and if those slots are full or not. If it's not full, then that's our existing slot. So let's say we found our slot of 60 bullets. Okay? So now we're going to take a look at that slot and say, okay, which is smaller? 220 or 60? Which is smaller? 60. 60 is obviously smaller, right? Y'all know that. You can do basic, you know which number's bigger than the other number. Y'all know that stuff. Okay, so then we have our existing slot. So, oh. So we're going to take a look at our existing slot and see how many is in there, how many we can add. We need to know which is smaller, the quantity when you want to add, or the maximum stack size. That's where this math min comes in. So we want to add 220. Or 100 minus 60. Which is smaller. So, and we want to know which of these is smaller. Oh, I meant to put 60, not 50. So obviously 40 is going to be smaller, right? So now our addable amount, we determined that 40 is lower than 220. Our addable amount is 40. So now we're going to take 40 and we're add it to our 60 slot. So we now have 100 in that slot. Okay, that's what's happening right here. We're making sure that item is equal to the bullets, and then we're going to take our quantity, which is 220, and we're going to subtract that 60. Or we're going to subtract that 40, sorry. And we still have 180 left. So we still need to add 180 of our quantity. So now we go down here. Our quantity, 180, is greater than 0. So we're going to find an empty slot. Okay, and then we need to find out which is smaller, 180 or 100, because 100 is our max stack size. Okay, obviously 100 is smaller, so we're going to add 100 to slot, to new slot, and then we have 180 minus 100. Alright, and now we still have more slots to add. But let's say, just for the sake of argument here, that we still have 80 to add, but we're out of slots. So again, 80 is still greater than 0. Alright, and then we have... But we go in here and we can't find a slot to fill. Our inventory is completely full. So then we broadcast out 80 bullets left. So we broadcast out, inventory is full. This is the bullet item, and there's still 80 left. Okay, so that's all that's happening in it. I know it's really complicated, but we have to make sure that we account for all those edge cases. Okay? Now we're going to do something very similar with our remove item method. So I copy pasted this in here. So public void remove item, or take the argument of the item and the quantity, and we need to track the total that we've removed. So first we need to go through our entire inventory and find all the slots that have the item. We need to check and see if the quantity in there is less than the quantity we want to remove, and set whichever is lower to our removable amount. And then we want to go ahead and remove that amount from the slots. If total removed We're going to increment our total removed to our removable amounts. And then we're going to subtract that from our quantity. And then if the slot now has 0 for its quantity, we're going to clear that slot. Remember, we have that method down below where we tell it to clear the slot. Okay, and then if quantity is less than or equal to 0, break out. Okay? And then if we go down here, if total removed is greater than 0, we're going to let everything know that we updated our inventory. We're going to let everything know that we removed an item. And if quantity is still greater than 0, meaning we still have some to remove, we also need to notify everything of that. And then finally, we need to handle the last case, which is if we have none of that in our inventory, we need to log that and let everything know we are out of that item. We do not have any more of that item. That's it for our inventory manager script. Let's go ahead and save this. I hit Control S to save. We'll go over to our item class now. And this is going to be very simple, short and sweet. Using Unity Engine, put it in your personal namespace. This is going to be a scriptable object, so we need to make it from the menu as needed. So create asset menu. File name is going to equal new item, menu name, inventory/item. And then we'll have a public class item scriptable object. And we're just going to define a few things in here. The item name, the sprite for the item icon, a string description, and then an integer, which is the maximum stack size for this item. Remember, for our bullets, the case for that, the maximum stack was 100. Now let's go over to our add item script. This again is going to be a very simple script. Using system collections, using system collections generic, using Unity Engine, using Sinuous Productions, which is my personal namespace. And then we're going to identify our inventory manager. We need to store which items being added, as well as the number we're adding. Next, we're going to check our game manager and pull out our inventory manager that's defined in our game manager class. And then we're just going to have a very simple method that's going to invoke the method in inventory manager to add items to it. Lastly, we need to go inside of our game manager and we need to set this up to spawn our inventory manager if it's not there, as well as defining it. So you can highlight this row here, copy it, paste, and then instead of options manager, we need inventory manager. Okay, and then same thing down here. I'm going to copy this. And then copy this. So there you go. Now our game manager is ready to initialize our inventory manager if needed, but we need to go ahead and make that prefab. So let's jump back into our game. We'll let it compile. We'll right-click Game Manager, create empty, name it Inventory Manager, and then we will add our Inventory Manager script to the class, or to the object. And then inside of our Project Explorer down here, we're going to create folder inventory. And we're going to put our item and add item inside of there. And then we're going to put our inventory manager inside of our managers folder. We can go down here. Inside of our resources, we're going to go to our resources, prefabs, managers, and we just drag our inventory manager into that folder. Let's go ahead and save our scene. And inside of our resources, I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to name it Items. I just want to show you what it's like to create an item real quick. So we can right click here, create inventory item. We're going to name this first item. Okay. And the item name's going to be first item. I'm going to go into our sprites folder, right click, create 2D sprite. We're just going to do a hexagon point top. We can go back to our item that we made and set the sprite to the hexagon point top. Description, first item ever made. Hooray. Max stack size, we'll set it to 3. That'll be a good testing size. Okay, and that's going to be it for our lesson today. In the next lesson, we will go over how to actually add items to the inventory, and we're going to make a little UI for the inventory as well. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. If you liked, please subscribe and go watch some of my other videos. Thanks. Bye.